o'clock. I'm going to call the special select board meeting of Tuesday, December 15th to order. We call it special because it's not our normal date. We moved ahead the week of Christmas meeting to give us the week off. First item is approval of the agenda, and we have a couple changes. Change to item 12, and that the discussion on the Energy Committee's recommendation for setting a goal for CO2 reductions from the town operations will be postponed until our January 12th meeting. And adding number 17, which is a request from BMP for a large purchase order to fund Middlebury money prizes for the Great Middlebury Pig Out Holiday Edition. And 18, the consideration of amendments to the town's lease with Addison County School District for the recreation park and renewal for a second 25-year term, which was mailed out to you. Ben's draft documents were mailed out to everybody just an hour ago or so. Are there any things that I'm missing on this?
Brian, depending on the time, we may have an executive session.
Yep. If we're ahead, or I would like to start discussion on a few items of real estate matters with everybody, but it's not under any kind of mandatory timeline at this point, and so it'll be dependent upon how the meeting goes as far as timing.
I move the agenda.
Second.
Second, is hearing no other amendments. All in favor signify with thumbs up. Okay. Next is approval of minutes of our December 8th regular select board meeting.
Moved.
Second.
Seconded. Are there any changes to the draft minutes? Seeing none. All in favor of approving the minutes as drafted, signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity to raise anything that's not on the agenda. Chris, is there anyone with their hand raised?
I don't see any raised hands at this time, Brian.
Okay. Next, then, we'll bring Chief Hanley in for our local emergency management update.
Hello, everybody.
Evening, Chief.
Hi, Chief.
Hi. Right now, to start off with, we've had no loss or any stress on services to date due to COVID, which is good. I know here in the police department, everybody's healthy, families are healthy, and have remained so all through this. Although we did have a couple of exposures 2 weeks ago, and both the officers tested negative. This was on an untimely death case where everybody in the house had COVID. But we got through that fine. Everybody's following the rules. COVID compliance checks a couple of weeks ago. We haven't had any complaints since. So that's another good thing. People are following the rules, doing what they're supposed to do to stay safe, which is making life easier for everybody. As you know, the Pfizer vaccinations have arrived here. They've got about 4,000 of them in so far, and they started the vaccinations. And it goes. Moderna should be out there next week. I put some details in the bulletin. You can find all that, the details there. Tomorrow, we're publishing a whole list of frequently asked questions regarding COVID that Ron Haltman sent me this evening. And we'll put that out there. It should answer any questions anybody has about whether it's safe and how to do it and what the story is with that. We're also going to add a bulletin, as I've had some questions regarding what's the process for selecting who gets COVID or not. Who gets the vaccinations going forward. And so we'll have some information for that in the bulletin tomorrow. You know, right now they need about 50 or 60,000 doses just for the healthcare workers and the long-term care facilities. And they expect about 34,000 by the end of the year. So we'll be going into January before we move on to the EMS and first responders and some of the more critical folks that need to have the vaccination. Other than that, our numbers are pretty stable here in Addison County. Middlebury, they pretty much remain stable. Everybody's following the rules. We're doing the best we can. COVID is spread throughout the state, And so it is a bit dangerous out there. And so we just encourage folks to continue the social distancing, cleaning your hands, and wearing your mask when you're out in public. And that's how it goes.
Questions of Chief? Okay, thanks, Chief.
You're welcome.
I don't know if we got you later in the agenda. If not, hope you have a happy holidays and Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Same to everybody out there.
Okay. So next on our agenda then is the appointment to fill our vacancy on the select board. And we've got Andy Hooper, Esther Thomas, and Laura Sermily, who we formally nominated last time. And so are there any questions of our candidates before we deliberate that you would like to invite them in to have questions of anyone? If there aren't, then I would open the floor to deliberation on. Nick.
Thanks, Brian. Well, I was sitting there thinking, looking back at my time on the board here, and this is the fourth time I've participated in voting for a new member to replace one that stepped down. This time, it's a board member who possessed an amazing amount of knowledge about Middlebury's government and what good governance means. As we all know, this is not an easy task, and like every member of the board, it's one that I take seriously and involves evaluating each candidate to try to determine who's most appropriate for the current tasks that the board's encountering. The last time we had to do this, it was we selected Farhad. And now Farhad did not have much experience with government functions, but he had a really good understanding of what the select board does. And he brought solid expertise and experience of his business operations and community relations and budget management to us. And Farhad, as I say, has turned out to be an outstanding member of this board and one who I'm proud to serve with. And so now I have to make the choice again. But what makes this more difficult is the fact that we're in a budget process, which is always our most intensive time of the board calendar, but even more so as we look at the financial implications of COVID and the community and the town's revenue. And I expect, as we all do, some difficult decisions before this session's over. We also have to enhance our emphasis on what we as a town and board can do to help the community recover from the emergency. And quite honestly, I don't think we can wait till after March town meeting to continue the conversation. And so before us, we have three candidates. One who we know well and have previously served with on the select board and is a person we're all familiar with and whom we enjoyed working with. In many respects, I guess I could say that she's the easy choice because we do know her and she knows us. The other two are new. One I have some familiarity with because of participation on some of the regional boards and committees. And the other who, before I started this evaluation I've been doing, I really didn't know at all. But I have had the chance over the past week to have some nice Zoom meetings with both of them and get to know them better. And I can readily say that they're both really fine people who represent the same desire to do good that those of us on the board have. After speaking with them, I thought about the key characteristics that are important for this moment because I'm tasked, as we all are, with picking one of them to complete Victor's term. Before the vote, I want to emphasize that in spite of my wishes, I can only vote for one of you. And, I could see a place for all three, but I can only vote for one. And just because I don't vote for you at this time, please don't take it as a rejection of you or your dedication to Middlebury and the citizens. I'm confident that there will be a role for each of you to make this place even better. And so as I looked at my criteria for selecting Victor's replacement, first, experience. What participation have the candidate undertaken in a similar situation? Have they been on a board where they had to evaluate options and make decisions that impacted a wide range of people? And have they had to oversee a budget and make difficult choices based on the available resources? The second thing I looked at is expertise. Do they possess the skills that are required for the moment? Which in this case is really ramping up quite quickly on the town's functions and operations during a pandemic and a budget process. And then of course, do they bring any particular skills that we don't have and that can enhance our efforts? And the third is the vision aspect. And this is arguably the most subjective, but I think it's important. And as I spoke with them, it's like, I want to see, do they have thought about some of the crucial issues that the town is facing? And importantly, and this is really important, have they shown some thought as to how these issues can be addressed and solved? I'm kind of looking for imagination and creativity. Now, I would say that the vision part is not as important right now during the budget process, but I think it is, because this is going to have an impact on some of our decisions as we look to the future. Plus, I personally would advocate that when we finish the budget process, we dedicate an entire board meeting before the March town meeting to a discussion about how the town and this board can assist the community in the post-COVID recovery and what we need to do after March 1st. And so after meeting Esther and Andy and being very impressed with both, and of course knowing Laura from her many years of board participation, I thought long and hard about who I believe is the best person for the moment. And even in my engineer style, I created a criteria matrix to see how they numerically compared, and that provided some interesting assessments actually that kind of revealed themselves. So the question that really I have before us, as we each do, is, do I vote for a known candidate, which is arguably an easy option, or do I take a bit of risk and vote for someone who is not as well known, but that I believe has the strengths to offer Middlebury at this time? And who do I think is going to be best for Middlebury at this moment in time? So I've made my decision, and I want to thank all of them for coming forward. They're all really good people, and they haven't made it easy, but got to make a decision. Over.
Okay. Anybody else? Dan?
I don't think I can be quite as articulate as Nick was. He'd obviously thought long and hard about this, and I've had several conversations with quite a few people, and I did not talk to Andy or Esther, but I did talk to Nick a lot about it, and he filled me in, and I got their resumes, and I agree with with Nick's assessment of the three candidates we have. Only I'm looking at it in a little bit a different way. And the way I'm looking at it is that I feel that we've got 5 more meetings until the town meeting, and it's a very short period of time with a lot of things that are packed in during that period, including the budget and our discussions on cannabis preparations for the town meeting itself, and other issues we have. So I have been thinking that, and I'm the rookie, so I know how long it takes to get up to speed, and you all have been very, very good at mentoring me and talking to me and helping me. And I've learned a lot from watching everybody and talking to everybody. And I have been in the community a long time, and I think I know the issues, and I feel comfortable, and I'm in a good place. But the way I look at it is we've got these 5 meetings to do, and I would like to put the person in the job that can do those 5 meetings, is the most comfortable, and can carry us through to the meetings, to the town meeting. And I would really like to leave it up to the voters and the community and the town to pick who's going to be our next select board member. And I think that the two that I would not vote, I vote for any of them. It's easy, I could, but I can only vote for one. And I think the other two have a great opportunity to get their name on the ballot and let the community have the choice. So I'm thinking in a different way than Nick is, and I'm ready to vote when we're all ready.
Anybody else? Heather?
I appreciate all that Nick shared, and Dan too, thank you. So this is a tough decision, obviously it always is. I do have to agree with Dan a little more so than Nick, although they both make some great points. Although making a decision, I think, for Laura might be considered easy, I do agree with Dan's assessment in the time it takes for a board member to get up to speed. And I think I do agree with letting the voters make the ultimate decision of putting someone on the board at town meeting. So although that is a hard choice, and as always, I wish I could select all three of them to join us, I think I would choose at this time to add Laura on to get us through the next couple of months.
Anybody else? Dan?
Just a quick update, and my point was being, and Heather stated it, was that it takes a while to get up to speed, and whoever the two candidates we have, if we took them on, yeah, they'll be productive, they'll be there and everything, but it's a big learning process, and I know that Laura can do it. I know she's there. Laura has been. I've watched her. She's been looking at the list on the side. Laura's been at every meeting that we've had this year, and is instantly up to speed right now. So I agree with Heather. So
I think Lindsay had something first, Farhad.
Farhad can go.
Thank you. The only point I want to add to this discussion is when I was put on the board, I was very lucky that I had great mentors. We were in physical meetings. I got to meet people. I got to sit with them for coffee, and they explained these procedures. That's the only drawback with this procedure is if somebody with not so much experience comes on, they'll be on Zoom with us all the time. There's not a whole lot of mentoring anybody can do. That's the reason I would go for somebody with experience. But on the other hand, I'm amazed by the number of recommendations that Esther got. I was astonished. That's a great testament.
Lindsay?
Yeah, so I really appreciate everybody's thoughts, and I appreciate the thoroughness that everyone has brought to this conversation, to this decision. On a very basic level, I absolutely agree with what Dan and Heather are saying. It's such a short amount of time that we have to accomplish a lot. This is a really difficult year. And I think what Laura has many things going for her, but it's not just that she's familiar with the budget, she's familiar with our budget. She's familiar with the town probably more than anyone. And she's been here, despite getting off the board, rotating off, she's somehow here in meetings a lot. So I think she is, you know, a very smart choice. You know, I think sometimes what we fail to notice is that other people, you know, there might be priorities or concerns that don't come to us, that people don't bring up, and they don't bring them to us because they don't feel comfortable with any of us or they don't know us well. And I do worry in a town that is so small about having, you know, sort of social circles that overlap too much. And I think having somebody with a fresh perspective, you know, I actually see being newer to the town as being something beneficial, because you're coming to it with really fresh eyes. And I think having the, you know, the perspective of another person who maybe stands out a little bit in some ways, especially as we continue our conversation about race, equity, inclusion, I think that's really valuable. And I do think that, you know, us voting to include, you know, somebody with that experience would show that commitment, the experience being a lived experience. And I know Esther, I do know Esther personally. I mean, let me just say that. And what I have found from talking with people, and I think we saw that with the letters that came in, is that people have a really, really wonderful view of her. And you know, I've talked to her a lot over the past year, and she is so smart and kind, and she brings thoughtfulness to everything. I'm aware that we might not all be in agreement at this point, but I do think she will win you over. I think she's going to win a lot of people over if you haven't had the pleasure of getting to know her. I do understand that, you know, we need to make a decision that is what's best for a very short amount of time, and it's a very busy amount of time. So I would, you know, if that's what we're going to focus on in this moment, I would think Laura would be a wise choice. But I do want to think longer term about, you know, and ultimately it will be up to the town. But, you know, I do think, you know, we really need to consider ensuring that everybody, you know, everybody looks at us and sees somebody that they can connect with, that everyone in the town feels that somebody here understands their experience, or, you know, has their back, or is willing to listen. And, you know, for better or for worse, I think sometimes that does come down to you know, the details that make each of us individual. So at any rate, those were my thoughts. But I do agree, you know, we could leave this up to the voters ultimately. And I mean, first and foremost, I'm just really excited that we have 3 incredible candidates for this job. That's pretty impressive. So at any rate, thank you.
Okay. I should, I guess, just share my thoughts, since we're all sharing it. I've given a lot of thought to this as well, and I don't think anybody's off base. There's a lot of ways to look at this. My thought, though, is we're a little bit different times than our previous selections, in that we are about as close as you can get to being overwhelmed on our workload. And as I think Farhad really put it well, that it's difficult to do any mentoring at a time like this. And so the time to come up to speed is going to be even longer than normal. That would give the nod to you know, somebody with experience. Yet I think it would do the town an injustice to select Andy over Esther on just the experience, because you know, there's a tremendous amount that comes with diversity and having people from different viewpoints. And that's how a lot of creativity can push to new thinking and potentially break through on longstanding problems. And so I am not feeling that selecting Laura is an easy path. I think it's a wise path, and to allow us time to, if Andy and Esther are both interested, which I expect, in running, for the town to get to know them and for the board to get to know them, and so that the town can vote for who they would like out of those two. And if there's others that come forward, so, that would be great too. But we have two very qualified candidates in different respects. And I think that for us, without having a great deal of time to get to know them, it's tough to say that we're going to take one and then that gives them an up when it comes to the elections, because they're effectively an incumbent. And so I would prefer not to do that in this particular case. I would solicit a motion from somebody.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Laura Asermely to fill Victor Nuovo's vacated seat for the remainder of the term until town meeting 2021.
I second.
Okay. We should vote on that. And so all in favor of the motion signify with a thumbs up. And those against? Okay. So if we could get Laura and Ann and Chris, please.
Okay.
By the way, while they're coming in, thank you for, I thought, very quality deliberation there. And here's Laura now. Are you there, Ann?
I'm here. I'm
Okay.
figuring out where I am.
Here you are.
There I am. Yes, okay, great. Hello, everyone.
Evening,
It's been a
Ann.
long time, man.
Yes. First thing, I'd just like to say thank you to all the people who did step up and ask to be considered for this. And I think that's really wonderful that you had such great people step up. And so thanks to everyone. And I also wanted to remind people that this year is going to be a little different for any of the offices, for select board, library trustee, moderator, or whatever. All the positions open, that candidates do not have to get a petition to run for office. They just need to sign a consent form to have their name put on the ballot. And so anyone can contact me about that. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. And the forms, I think Chris is putting up on the website. So. And Laura, 2 oaths of office for you. And so if you could raise your right hand. The first one is, do you solemnly swear or affirm that you'll be true and faithful to the state of Vermont and that you will not directly or indirectly do any act or thing injurious to the Constitution or government thereof? So help you God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I affirm.
And do you solemnly swear or affirm that you'll faithfully execute the duties of your appointment to the Select Board for the town of Middlebury and will therein do equal right and justice to all persons to the best of your judgment and ability according to law? So help you God, or under the pains and penalties of perjury?
I affirm.
Okay, I'm going to email this form to you, and there's 2 places for you to sign, and you can download it, sign it, and just, you can mail it back to me or drop it in our Dropbox. And thank you very much for serving, Laura.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Ann.
Laura, we're glad to have you back.
Yeah, welcome back.
May I comment?
Yeah. Can you turn your volume up a little bit? Am I the only one who can't hear her as well?
I've had trouble with my volume today. Can you hear me better now?
I can. It's a
Very
little better.
low.
Yeah.
Okay, and I just want to say how valuable that deliberation was. And Nick, I totally get it. You know, like what you're saying, and I just really valued what you said. And I too am very excited by the fact that we have Andy and Esther running for select board seats and maybe others. And I've been clear in saying I am not running for select board in 2021. So just here for this chunk of time to help. And I also want to mention that I started my work on select board as a committee member, attending meetings, not on the board. And you can participate quite a bit, you know, that way. So just attend. I'm saying that to anybody that's watching tonight, that is the way it works. Come to the select board meeting and have your voice here. Thank you.
Good advice.
That's a good point, Laura. I think many of us, not most, but many of us have started by being on various committees, and it helps with understanding the workings of the community, of the town, the governance. So, good tip. Let's see, we need the Health and Human Services Agency review, and this year we are reviewing Addison County Restorative Justice Services, and Jean Stone should be with us. Good evening, Jean.
Good evening. Can you see me?
Hi, Jean.
Thank you so much for letting me join tonight. And I agree, that was really thoughtful deliberations, and really impressed with you guys. So I'm going to get right to it so that I don't hold you any longer than you need to be here. So I have been the director at Addison County Restorative Justice for just over a year. This year we served 76 Middlebury folks. We do a variety of programs. Diversion used to be only for youth. We have adults that participate in that as well. And that might look like folks who have lost their driver's licenses and they struggle with getting them back. And we want to make sure that everyone on our roads in the state, that we're being safe and making sure we're not using substances. So one of the programs that we offer that has been incredibly successful is the DLS program, where we have workers navigate the system with folks and figure out how they can become relicensed and follow the safety laws. And we're talking some folks haven't had a license ever, or have not had a license for 10 to 15 years, and then become licensed legally and can drive. So there's been some studies on that statewide, and it really makes sense to get people on board and following the rules whenever we can. So that's one of the programs that I'm pretty excited about. We also offer youth diversion, and diversion can look like meeting in front of a panel and helping to understand the harm that you've done, maybe to the individual, but also the community in which you live, and the impact to folks, and doing some repair of harm for that impact. We have just over 100 volunteers in various positions with our agency, and we are incredibly lucky. We are working really hard to continue the partnership with Middlebury College to get some more youth on our panels, and that will benefit young folks. We do a variety of other programs when people come out of incarceration. We do something called reentry, where we help them find housing. We follow them to make sure that they are utilizing the treatments and the supports that are necessary. We also offer something called a COSA, which is Circles of Support and Accountability, and that is for high-risk sex offenders coming out of incarceration. We meet with them weekly. There's a team of folks, and we work very closely to make sure that they are following the rules, and also to be their support and encourage them, how to practice to do a job interview, how to make a phone call to get some health insurance, how to do things that can support them to safely reintegrate into the community. We also offer safe driving programs where if youth or even adults use substances or like cell phone use, we have a 6-hour safe driving course that we offer to the community that runs every other month. We work closely with others, especially in this pandemic, to make sure that we are trying to stretch the resources that we have, because we realize that they are finite. So when I brought this petition, it was on town meeting day last year. And so we worked to get all the signatures, and then the pandemic happened. So I'm conflicted a little bit with asking the town to support more and realizing that we absolutely need support to continue to have programs that are vibrant and meet the needs of the community.
Questions of Jean? Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, do you track at all recidivism rates with your clients or not?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the data for the DLS, it's a little complicated because there's 2 ways that people can be charged for driving license suspended in the state of Vermont, criminal and civil. The state's attorney has got some pretty good data on this, that it is very effective. Like, I think it's 62% of folks that get their license back maintain it. And that's huge. We live in a rural area. We know the data is in on youth, that if we can keep them out of the system, if we can keep them from being exposed to the criminal justice system, they're more likely not to become involved with it. Once kids have experienced that system, I think they're 10 times more likely to come back and visit it again. And so we try really hard to bend the curve so that we can prevent. We do something called a youth substance abuse safety program, where police officers can cite underage youth who are using substances, alcohol, drugs, and they can cite them. And if they engage with us and agreeing to do a screen and do the things that we ask them to do, they have the opportunity to not be adjudicated. That way they can get their needs met, treatment needs or whatever, mental health needs, before becoming involved with the system. So we feel like we're really important on that front end to help streamline folks into the programs that they need to get to before they get to the system.
Farhad?
Hi, Jean.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Just a quick question about what is the contribution of other towns compared to Middlebury?
So everyone is contributing. Middlebury has the most residents that participate. This year we were low. I'm not sure what that was about. I do know, though, since the court has picked back up, that we have had a pretty big increase with driving under the influence and things like that. So our safe driving classes are full now, and we were down to like 3 participants each time, but they really have picked up, which is wonderful. So I know that Virgin's was due for an increase. Unfortunately, we didn't get the signatures we needed before. So we will plan on doing that when signatures come. And the bigger towns, Salisbury, Bristol, they're at the same as Middlebury would be.
Oh, okay.
Per person. So I spend a lot of time writing grants, trying to make sure that we're not only relying on one pot of money or just the towns or just the state, really working hard to make sure that we're also doing our part. Because as a taxpayer and a person who was actually born here in Middlebury and lived here my whole life, it's incredibly important that we all do our part. And I do think this is a worthwhile place to put our money, because it really does bend that curve. And we're in a hard part right now, in a hard place. And we know that substance use has been on the increase since the pandemic has been happening.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Lindsay?
Yeah, just more of a comment or thoughts I was having as I was reading through everything. You know, I know we've had some conversation, you know, as the community group came forward, talking about defunding the police, you know, and that means different things to different people. But a big part of the conversation, and I'm sure this has occurred to everyone here, but I'll say it out loud for the record. You know, a big part of that conversation is adequately funding the services that prevent crime in the first place. And it, you know, if it works, it has the potential of taking, you know, taking the burden off our local police. And we all know that they're very stretched. I was reading an article recently in the Washington Post that was detailing how theft of food is on the rise currently because of COVID. So many people are hurting, and you know,
And
we all know,
diapers.
yeah. When I worked briefly at a grocery store, and baby formula got stolen a lot. So at any rate, you know, I just think, I know we have to talk about the budget. I'm not, you know, making a ploy for, you know, one way or the other, but, you know, I just think as we think about the fuller picture, I think it's going to be really important to think about our community holistically, and you know, consider that, you know, the adage, like what is it, ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So I don't know, those were thoughts I was having, so thanks.
So we have been, there's a group of folks thinking about how we can support that work to help the police, because like I was at last year's town meeting and our police are overworked. They were having a hard time hiring then. And I can't imagine it's gotten too much easier now. And so that is something that is on our radar, and we are working hard to figure out what we want to offer and how we want to offer to support that community intervention piece with the police, but that is on the radar.
Any other questions? Gene, I just had a couple questions. Did you say that the 76 Middlebury residents served was lower than typical, or I'm not sure I was
It
following.
is lower this year, and I wasn't sure if what that had to do. Usually we run between 82 and 100. So I know that before we came into the pandemic, our Addison County youth rates were down. So that might have something to do with the amount of referrals being down as well. But since we have entered the pandemic, the numbers are shooting up. The referrals from the court are coming in. So I'm not sure if that's going to be a good indicator of this year, but for last year, that was the lowest in a few years that we had seen.
Just looking at the amount of funds you get from other towns, just an observation, it feels, this is one of the things as a shire town that we're acutely aware of, is we always seem to pay a disproportionate per person contribution. You know, we're at 20 to, even if we're at 100, would be 25% of the caseload. And we're being asked to pay 5,500, where you've get just over 8,000 from the other towns.
Right.
And I don't know what we have to do if we're going to do that. What we have to do to shame the other towns into supporting equally, or, but you know, we're in tough times right now with the budget, and so it is something that, because we not only lose the taxes from nonprofit you know, owning properties, so we effectively pay twice as a shire community. So it is a tough situation, and I just would point that out, that we should be going after the other towns too.
Absolutely. And that was actually, that is part of the plan to make it more equitable. So I was there at the town meeting when the Middlebury ambulance discussion happened last year. And so there was a lot of really good points with that. And I just didn't have time to get the signatures with the other towns, or we would have been having this discussion as well. Because I ran out of time before everything shut down. It shut down a week after we were at town meeting. So absolutely, I think that's a really valuable point.
Has it been that long? Week after town meeting.
Yep, that's when we shut down.
Okay. Lindsay?
Yeah, just quickly, I'm just wondering what your other sources of funding are other than town contributions.
So we have a contract with the Attorney General's office, and they run the diversion program as well as the pretrial services program. We have a contract with the Department of Corrections for the reentry programs, as well as the COSA programs, where we support the high-risk sex offenders. We have written money, 2 small grants. We do 2 fundraising campaigns during the year. We are in the process of designing this community support partnership to aid the police and community policing. And I think that's, yeah, that's about it.
Thank you.
Well, Jean, we appreciate you spending the time with us this evening to help us understand the situation with the Addison County Restorative Justice Program. And we're working through the budget, and we'll do our best to provide any additional support we can for you.
And I appreciate you letting me come to this meeting, and I would love to come back. That was a great deliberation. Thank you so much for what you guys do. It was really thoughtful and informed. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jean. I guess that brings us to Bill Kernan. Well, he's coming on, Kathleen. Could you print me out one of the budgets? I've been looking at them all on here, but now as we get ready to go through it in its total and have our hearing, I think it would be helpful to have it printed out for me.
Actually, I can use one too, Kathleen. I can pick it up.
You'll be signing, you'll need to sign a letter this week, and I'll have them ready for you all.
All right, thank you.
Good evening, Bill.
Good evening. How is everybody on this cold and starry night? It is quite beautiful out.
It's beautiful. You got a nice beard going too.
Oh, yeah. Just something to do, I guess.
Yeah.
So Public Works budget, just a couple points on the highlights that were sent out in the packet. You'll see some changes when we get to the line items. I continue to consolidate some things and absorb lines where just to shrink our budget. I mean, it's, what are we, 1,300 line budget usually? So you'll see some changes. It's usually a net change. I've just moved some stuff around. And then I continue to do some long-term tracking, 5-6 years out, just to look at trending expenses and stuff. There's certain line items that are always going to fluctuate, but I just try to minimize that by looking long-term on stuff. So if we get into the budget, really the only increases you're going to see in here are in wages. It's due to a couple of factors. One is just your annual cost of living increases and benefit package, that kind of thing. And then the other thing is that we ended up backfilling a long-term vacancy in the highway department. And having said that, because of that, the increases are actually quite minimal. And that's just due to staff utilization and cutting out some contract work for like our sidewalk program and things like that. So.
Bill, one of the major drivers is the equipment fund.
Yeah, like I said, those are the only two areas of increase really is going to be in the wages. And then there's several line items where I've reduced spending just given trending over time. And then the big thing is every year I try to look at the master equipment fund and where we're at and what condition the equipment is in, and then trying to keep year over year relatively flat on the equipment expense side. So this year we were able to move some stuff around and balance things out, and that's given us a fair amount of savings. So the overall budget is actually about 3.5% less than it was last year.
So we're looking at what, line 600 to 793? Is that
Yes.
right?
Yep.
Yes, 600, yep.
Anything specific that you want to point out to the board here, Bill?
I would rather just answer questions if you see something that jumps out at you. Like I said, I basically have just moved some things around. If you go down and look at
Your bottom line looks awfully good, that's for sure.
yeah, if you look at the sidewalk program, line 776 through 784, there's nothing there, because what I did was I moved that up into the winter maintenance program. So we don't have wages spread all over the place and contract services and all of that. So that, you know, it may bode some questions on why you might see some increases or whatever, but overall, like I said, it's a 3.5% reduction over last year.
And where are you able to take that reduction from most?
The majority of it came from the equipment fund.
From the equipment fund.
So
Yeah, so
line,
if you look in the highway summer maintenance on line items 704 and 705. And then again, in the winter program at 753 and 754, you'll see those.
And that's savings because of the dependability of the newer equipment. You're not spending so much on maintenance, or?
It's just looking at that master list over time and rebalancing it. So I might have 2 trucks for purchase next year, for instance, and some other miscellaneous equipment. It's going to cost us $600,000, but the vehicle's in really good shape. And the following year, I'm projected to be at a couple $100,000. So it's just looking at those and trying to keep those balanced out.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody
just-
have any questions, Bill?
I would just say a couple things in general. The crew's been really good about our chloride application over the last 3-4 years. We've saved quite a bit of money on how much chloride we're using on our gravel roads, and the gravel roads are still in great shape. And then also on our paved roads, we're seeing more patchwork that has to be done. Last year was a good example of that. We had quite a lot in additional expenditures on that. So there's things that go up and down, but overall we've done pretty well on holding the bottom line. So.
Dan?
Yeah, hey, Bill, I being the new guy, I just have a question. I know a lot of your things, you have contractual services, but on the unpaved road, contractual services is 40,000. What kind of service do you contract for on the unpaved roads?
What line item is this?
It's 719.
Yeah, so that's our chloride purchase. That comes
Oh.
from a third party.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions of Bill? Yeah, Laura?
Hi, Bill.
Hi.
Thanks very much for being so careful with the budget and saving us money in so many places in the budget this year, especially this year. Really grateful. And I've just come from the Walk Bike Council of Addison County meeting where we were talking about winter maintenance, and I had to explain to them, you know, how the town uses its salt. And I know that we've talked about salt, and I can see in the budget that you've been careful, you know, with that, although last year we spent more than what you're budgeting for this year. So I'm optimistic, you know, that we're going to try to be careful. And it's a wild card, you know, we just never know, you know, because it varies so much depending on our conditions. So thank you, you know, like for all the hard work that goes into figuring out the science of winter road and sidewalk maintenance. And this is an opportunity to really tell us and the public anything that would be helpful to help you, you know, like with managing that budget for the rest of this year, but also going into future years.
Yeah, the salt's a tough one. It's extremely weather dependent. And if you get a year where you get a lot of icing as opposed to a lot of snow, you're going to use a lot more salt. But we do calibrate our trucks sometimes more than once a year. But prior to the season, we have bed chain speeds and we have spinner speeds and, you know, rate of application that we want per mile of road and all of that. So we do the best that we can. And I have seen some recent posts on Front Porch Forum, sidewalks and stuff. Even though we do the best that we can, we have some equipment failures. And we had one out in East Middlebury that I was made aware of yesterday, I think it was. And that was, we had replaced the roller on the spreader to a different style of roller. And it was more susceptible to clogging up. So it pushed the salt all the way over to one side and put a lot more salt down in a narrow strip than on the entire side. So there's things that happen, but yeah, we do try.
So Bill, I also didn't know, is it new staff that's learning how to use the equipment? Could that also be a factor?
It is when, like, I have the sidewalk program, especially, it continues to, seems like it changes every single year, trying to refine it. And that means that sometimes I've had different people in there and there's a little bit of a learning curve. Yes.
Yeah, in the beginning of the season. So
Yep.
I think that's what we just explained. We try to explain to people, and you've been really good about getting a response back quickly. And I know that if we send you a picture of a condition or report it to you, that's helpful, you know, and that's one thing we can do to help is just report a condition if we see it.
Yeah, most people do it in good nature, and it is appreciated to be made aware of things. If I don't know, I can't do anything about it. So.
So thank you for that.
Yep.
Nick,
Bill, you said you saw last year an increase in the amount of patching. Are there any obvious factors behind that? No, something preventable that can be done? I mean, I personally have been suspect of the increased use of studded tires, but that's a...
Well, sometimes projects get delayed, like Colonial Street and some other things that are just, they're totally falling apart. Same thing with maybe Rogers Road. For certain reasons, it might be timing of grants or whatever, they get delayed a year, 2 years, whatever, and then it catches up to us and you know, we need to do something to keep it together before the project goes. That's usually what it is. We've put a little bit on Court Street in some of the rutting areas this year, just because, you know, that got pushed another year, that kind of thing.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Heather?
Just to add to Nick's question a little bit, I do think we have delayed keeping up with our regular road repaving schedule. And, you know, Dan has been trying to do a great job of doing projects where we evaluate all of the infrastructure so that we're not, you know, when there's stormwater and a water main and sewer work to be done, we're not, you know, repaving a road and then digging it up in a couple of years to do that work. So he's been doing a lot of planning around that. And that has, I think in some cases, delayed some of the paving projects more than we might have wanted. But I think you'll also find in the capital budget, we've started to increase the amount of money we're setting aside for doing paving projects. So hopefully we can get caught back up on some of that paving work. So we aren't seeing as much in the operating budget to keep things in a more workable condition. So.
That certainly makes sense. And I appreciate that effort of doing it right the first time. And I mean, I look at Butt Off Drive as a perfect example of a couple of years ago. It was a major amount of work, but everything was done properly. And that should have a return on investment that's going to last quite long. So thanks.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I had a small and probably largely inconsequential question, which is just on line 633, which is trash and recycling. There's not really anything there other than the FY20 actual cost. So I'm just wondering what's going on there. Do you not normally have it, or does it fluctuate a lot?
I don't know if I can answer that question. That could have been moved to, I don't know if it would have been moved to the equipment budget. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure.
Okay.
I mean, we do have, they're usually small items throughout the year that would fall into that category. I don't know as though they'd really be under the admin budget. They'd be more under like a summer or winter program where we have things left beside the road that we need to go take care of, get rid of, incur cost on, things like that. But that particular line item, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. We're done grilling Bill. Thanks for going through the budget with us, Bill.
Brian, we do have one hand raised in the audience from Judy Weiger-Gross.
Okay. Judy?
Go ahead, Judy.
Can you hear me?
You can.
Okay, just a quick question, and this isn't just for Bill. I think it's for town employees in general. What the cost of living increase is that you are using for next year's salaries?
The number is 2% included in the wages before the board tonight.
Sorry, can you say that again, Kathleen?
2%.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, so, Bill, if I don't think there's any other questions, then thank you for presenting your budget, and we're gonna invite Dustin in.
Well, that's interesting. Dustin has disappeared.
Oh, yeah.
I hope I didn't remove him accidentally. Don't think I did.
Okay, let me see, we can go on to,
Let me see if I can text him and alert him to the fact that he's disappeared off the screen.
okay. Oh, there he comes.
There he is.
All right, sorry about that, guys. Not sure what happened.
I don't think anybody is.
All right, before I get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to acknowledge and thank the town administration and the select board for the continued support of our department and especially our recreation center. While we've been closed for the better part of about 8 months now, the facility has provided us the opportunity to really make a difference fighting the pandemic in various different ways. Starting with in September, we applied and were selected by the state to become a regional childcare hub, which allowed us to provide essential worker childcare as well as remote learning camps while students were still only in school 2 days a week. In the past few months, the facility has also hosted multiple Red Cross blood drives and after school and in-service day childcare, voting for the presidential election. We have been a distribution site for PPE supplies for the southern part of the state. Right now, we're the COVID-19 pop-up testing site for Middlebury, and that's been averaging between 75 and 100 administered tests per day. And then later this week, we're partnering with the local school district to package and distribute 400 meal kits right here at the rec center to give to local families to take home for them for the holiday break. I just wanted to take a minute to acknowledge that, and it really has amazed me how functional the rec center has continued to be and how the facility has really adapted to the various needs of the community. And I really think it's something that we all can be proud of and know that we're making a difference. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dustin.
All right, moving on to my budget. I do want to preface by saying this budget projection for the fiscal year 2022 is contingent on us returning to our regular programming, as well as resuming facility rentals in the summer of 2021. And to spare you the time, I'm not going to go line item by line item. I'm just going to give you a macro level view, and I'd be happy to answer questions after. For expenditures, we are projecting a budget of $473,126, which is a 4.6% decrease from fiscal year 21. The following line items are major drivers in the reduction of the $22,911 from the expenditure budget. A reduction in administrative cost of $1,776, which is line 852. A $11,850 reduction in programming costs, which is a combination of line 896, which is instructional programs, line 958, which is our youth programming, and line 973, which is our adult programming. We also have a reduction in the total maintenance of facility cost of $5,435, which is line 1018. And then a reduction in the parks maintenance cost of 3,250, which is line 1035. The areas where we saw an increase in our expenditure budget were due to an increase in the cost of living wage, as well as an increase in the minimum wage rate for some of our first year counselors and lifeguards at the pool. Does anybody have any questions about expenditures? Yeah, Dan.
So
This is just a knowledge for me is line 954, split revenue programs. What is that?
So that is all of our programming that we create that doesn't have a assigned line item yet. So any new programming throughout the year gets added to that before they get their own line item. We'd like to see a pattern of about 2 years before we make a line item for it.
Okay, thank you.
Farhad?
yeah, I had the question that Dan had, but the other one was, is this the decrease because of COVID directly related to, or any other factors?
The decrease in expenditures?
Right.
Nope, it's just kind of taking a hard line look like Bill had done, just tightening up some spaces where we could. Like I said, we're hoping to resume to our full programming for this fiscal year, so just taking a look at the line. Yep, go ahead.
I'm sorry. So if, God forbid, if it continues, how does it affect your revenue or expenditure?
As we saw this year, it greatly affects our revenue. And in return, that does decrease our expenditures as well, because if programs aren't happening, then we're not paying out the payments to instructors.
Right.
They do have a lot of fixed costs with the facility maintenance and with the 2 full-time staff people that are there, positioning us to respond to community needs such as the school hub, the COVID testing and the like.
Dustin, I wouldn't be surprised if post-COVID, you actually see a big increase as people want to get out and do things.
Certainly what we're hoping.
Well, I certainly think that, well, it's a downturn. I mean, the Parks and Rec has been a solid department. So I look at this as we carry it on through. It's a short-term investment for a long-term benefit. So I agree. I think we're going to see a big surge, and I hope you're taking a little bit of time off now, because you may not later. That's a hope, not for you, but for the department.
Lindsay?
Yeah, no, I'm glad you guys mentioned that. I was having the same thought, and I realize this is not really in the budget, but I'm wondering, I suspect we'll see a boom in people wanting those services this year, and I think for everybody's mental health, that's probably a wonderful thing. And I'm just wondering, in a normal year, does the program we have in place to help pay for activities that families can't afford themselves, do we normally meet that need, or do you normally have a lot of applicants and you can't include them?
We have never not approved a scholarship in some form. I mean, anytime a family comes to us in need, we've always figured out a way. And if it's not enough of a scholarship, we do allow some payment plans that we set up with families and stuff that allows them to continue to do the programming.
Okay. If people in the community that are listening were interested in helping out, because I think, a lot of families in our community are not going to be in a position, and I would, this year, and I know for my family, that's one of the first things that gets cut is activities, because they're expensive. And, a lot of people are out of work. So if people listening would like to contribute to that and make that possible for families in our community, how would they go about doing that?
You could just reach out to me via email, which is dhunt@townofmiddlebury.org. And then if families do have trouble paying, we do have volunteer opportunities that would offset the fee of the program. So their kids would get to participate for free in that program that they either help coach or volunteer at. So,
Wonderful. Thank you.
yep.
Laura?
Hey, Dustin.
Hi, Laura.
That was an impressive introduction of the way the building is being so well used. And I know we've added an electric car charger to the building this year, which is another great addition. And I'm wondering if any of those groups pay a rental contribution. Like, are you getting any income from any of that use, or is it all gratis?
It's just all gratis at this point, trying to help out where we can.
Okay. I just was
I
curious.
wouldn't say they're not using a ton of our resources, so there's not a huge expense associated with it.
Mhm. And I know it's a lot of work to coordinate the scheduling of all of that, so I can understand how you and Scott are fully deployed in that work, and I know that'll continue. So thank you.
Any other questions of Dustin? Okay. All right. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Thanks, Dustin.
So now we should talk about our public hearing on the FY22 budget. And the town charter requires that we conduct a public hearing on the proposed budget not less than 40 days from the town's annual meeting. And we've discussed scheduling the hearing for the board's January 12th regular meeting. That gives the select board one additional opportunity on January 26th to do any tweaks to the budget that we would prefer to do prior to the final budget being needing to be warned. Is everybody good with the January 12th date?
Yep.
And that works with your calendar still, Kathleen?
Yes.
Okay. So maybe we should go ahead and get a motion on that first.
I'll make a motion to warn a public hearing to take testimony on the draft FY22 general fund budget during the regular meeting of the select board on Tuesday, January 12th, 2021.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It's like pulling teeth tonight, guys. Okay. Everybody good with that? All in favor of the motion, signify with thumbs up. Okay. So the other thing we should talk a little bit about is the conduct of the town meeting, if you guys are up for it. In our December 9th email to town meeting moderator Susan Shashak, town clerk Ann Webster said she had confirmed with the Secretary of State's office there's currently no provision in statute for holding a town meeting virtually, and no such action is being considered. Now, we did receive read ahead, and they are preparing to take this up as soon as the new legislature gets underway in January. And it looks like there'll be some options for towns. One option would be to postpone the town meeting. I don't think that works for us. We need a budget that's approved. Kathleen.
Just to note that Susan Shashak and Ann Webster are in the audience and
Oh, we
perhaps
should wait a
they'll have
minute.
something to add.
Yeah. Hey, good evening. I probably should leave that little drop-down box to see who's with us. It's difficult not knowing who's out there. So we're just talking a little bit about our options on town meeting, and you know, I don't think that it works for us, even if they do approve it, for us to be able to defer the town meeting to a later date. And so we are, I think, going to be in a position where we can have a Zoom meeting, a Zoom-like, at least, remote town meeting.
No.
And that's not, what do you mean, no, Ann?
I mean, to actually hold the town meeting virtually is not acceptable.
Well,
There is approval.
Comment then? We can't vote virtually, but we could.
Right, right. What you'll need to do is at least hold an informational meeting where there is no voting. But if you do that, you need to make sure that everything is going to go on a ballot.
Yeah.
So basically what the board needs to do, because we do vote several things from the floor, is the board has to decide if they're going, I mean, I would certainly suggest we don't postpone the meeting. Currently with COVID on the rise, I don't see where we're going to have an in-person meeting. So to me, it would make sense if the board is going to decide to put everything on the ballot and vote to do that. And once that's done, you will have to have an informational meeting with no voting that can be done virtually.
Yeah, and that's where I was heading when you cut me off there.
Oh, I thought you were saying to have a virtual town meeting, and no, we can't.
Well, you know, it's semantics. I still would consider it a town meeting, but that the guidance would be that the voting would need to be all by Australian ballot. And so I think that's going to get approved very early in the legislative session, because we need something like that, the authority of the state to be able to do that. And so
that's already an option. That's like
you can
the
do
board
that now.
should be voting on that now.
You can vote on that now. You don't have to
I
wait.
thought that sunset at the end of the year, though.
No, not this particular thing. It's like certain things, like a lot of the things that we didn't use, like voting, like mobile voting and things like that, are all sunsetting.
I misunderstood Robin's note to us this afternoon, because I thought there was something sunset.
Yes.
I didn't see a note this afternoon, so I don't know.
Just gave Kathleen and I a heads up that they're working on some stuff in committee. And
So was she talking about the December 31st note, Kathleen?
There is no December 31st deadline for Australian balloting.
Okay, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, you guys can decide anytime you want, like from what Ann just said.
Well, you need to decide at least 30 days prior.
Right.
You need to decide that you're going to do by Australian ballot before you approve a warning.
Mm-hmm.
But the sooner you can do it, the better, because it does affect a lot of my preparation.
Right.
So, yeah. So
Can you think of any reason to wait?
I mean, preferably I would like to see democracy in action and have town meeting and vote on the floor and all those kind of things. But no, I mean, I don't think waiting is really going to do anything for us in this case. I think it would be nice to wait and try and have that meeting, but I don't think we're going to be in any better situation with the clock ticking than we are right now. So, I mean, preferably, I would like to have town meeting. I would say the only difference in town meeting is whether you need me or not. And so, you know, as much as I would like to have town meeting live and be able to do my job, I think you should probably just go ahead and vote on Australian ballot and have your own select board virtual meeting where you're not voting, and have that public forum. As long as next year you are committed to having town meeting again and we have live democracy and everything else. That's what I would recommend to you, as much as it hurts to say that.
And my understanding is also that it's typically up to the voters to change that you're not going to have a floor vote. This 1 year, you have the authority to do this by Australian ballot with everything and have your informational meeting, but then you would have to go back next year to the regular meeting. It would have to be as we normally do it, unless the voters voted to change that.
Correct.
And you would have to do that next year.
My first choice would have been the virtual meeting where we could vote and things like that, but without that possibility, it's my recommendation to go to Australian ballot.
And so Victoria DeWind is asking a question. In on Australian ballot, we can't make amendments to the budget. It'd be an up or down budget vote, and if they voted it down, that would be then we would have to amend it or bring it back to the voters. Correct?
Correct.
Absolutely.
And that's the tricky part of it is you're risking having to do it's an all or nothing situation.
And not only that people can vote it up or down, it's they don't have the opportunity to make amendments.
Correct. There's none of that floor voting. There's no changing it. There's no pulling out line items. There's none of those high action things that we see during town meeting.
It would be strictly educational back and forth, the dialogue then.
Correct.
Informational meeting, correct.
Yeah, you would just be talking to people and interacting with them.
Yeah.
Answering questions.
Well, I mean, it's given this is the hand we've been dealt and we can't do much about it. The Australian ballot part seems to me to be the easy part. Yeah, I mean, there's a risk, as you point out, Susan, and you know, the budget could get completely turned down, and that's a risk we'll take. But you know, I guess at this point, I don't see any reason to even almost delay this question. Let's just move this out of the way. Maybe we can hope, and you know, things will accelerate on a recovery rate in an optimistically little faster way, and we can do something that maybe even is a hybrid. I mean, we had our public safety meeting yesterday where some of us were there spread out all over the room, and some were calling in, but we can wait for that part later. But the nearest I can see right now, there's no reason to even delay this issue. Let's just, I'd be willing just to make a motion, say, let's just go for it, folks, and get this one off the docket so that Ann can do what she needs to do and Susan can do what she needs to do. And let's see how this plays out for the next couple of months. So I'd be willing just to make a motion now if that sounds fine and be done with it.
And we're sure that we have the authority now to do that for the new year?
Yes.
Okay.
I think it's Act 162 that
Mhm.
gives us that authority. If anyone wanted to look at it again.
You do have that authority.
Right.
Then why don't you go ahead and make a motion that
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion to vote all town meeting articles in the 2021 season by Australian ballot by a motion of the select board, returning to normal in 2022.
I'll second that. And I was also going to say, and I, you know, I agree with Susan. You know, I love seeing that democracy in action on town meeting night. But, you know, the truth is a lot of people struggle to make it to town meeting. And this is an opportunity for those folks who can't make it to vote on everything, not just some things. So I find that to be encouraging.
This also makes our public hearing on the budget on January 12th very important, because that'll be the last time that they'll have an opportunity to make changes to that budget. So we need to get the word out on that, because and I know that that hearing is not usually very well attended.
Victoria's our loyal attendee.
Yes, she's there every year. Yes.
Oh, good suggestion, Victoria. Victoria's suggestion that we promote in other venues, that's where it's important to participate if they want to have a say in the budget. Ann?
I just want to make sure that everyone's clear as well. Like once you vote, that if this goes to Australian ballot, you do have to have your budget public hearings, but there will also need to be an informational meeting, which you, Brian, described as our town meeting.
Okay, and it'll basically be a town meeting, but with the select board just holding it as an informational.
Yes,
Interesting.
and going through all the articles so there can be discussion.
I think Laura was first, Susan.
Yeah, I think we're really clear on that, Ann. Are people able to do early voting?
Absolutely, yes. And the sooner people want to request their ballots, that would be great.
So would the early voting happen potentially in front of the informational meeting?
It depends on when you hold the informational meeting. I think that has to be at least 10 days or something. Is that prior?
I think it has to be within 10 days, doesn't it?
Within 10 days? Okay. Early voting for local elections is not the same as state or federal, so it's not quite as long. It's approximately 20 days prior.
So I'm just trying to do the math on that in terms of scheduling the information meeting so that we actually anticipate early voting, because a lot of more people are doing early voting. So I think that's something for us to consider. Like, don't wait until just the night before the Australian ballot vote.
Right, right. And you're also not restricted. You must have that informational meeting within the 10 days, but you're not restricted to not having any other meetings that would be informative.
Right, and that's what we're saying, that January 12th meeting coming up is going to be like that, and but when would we want to, I'm not asking you this question, but the rest of the board, when would we want to schedule the informational meeting, knowing what we're talking about right now?
We need to keep in mind, we have to keep in mind that the school has also is going to do a similar thing. So we need to coordinate with them that we're not on the same night or.
Right, so we could be ahead of them potentially.
And early voting is going to start somewhere around February 10th.
January 10th?
I just wanted to clarify, just to make sure if you're going to do this, I'm assuming you're not going to need my services for the evening and I get the night off for the meeting that's the town meeting. It seems superfluous or extra to have me there just to intercede for you. So I'm just want to make sure that's what you're thinking.
Guess that's supported, so.
We'll schedule you at the poll, Susan.
Yeah, exactly. Ann will put me to work. I'm happy to help out if you want me, but you guys know how to run your select board meetings, and that's technically what this is. So it seems okay just to not be there if that's okay with you.
Well, but it's a slightly different select board meeting, and at the town meeting, you're kind of like the gatekeeper, the recipient of the questions. So.
Well, if you decide you want me, you can
okay.
Check in with me, but I don't want to assume that I'm needed. That's the thing I'm double checking on. Let me know if you need me and I'll come, but otherwise I'll probably be in the audience and there for those things.
I think it's part of like the, personally, and like we all have, is try a little bit of a desire to try to maintain as much of normality as we can, and
Yeah.
whatever that looks like. So, but I hear what you're saying. So let's
And
talk.
it's a bummer to have lost my job this year. So yeah.
Yeah, it didn't take you long to get kicked off, did it?
I was gonna say I'm a one-hit wonder.
Are you Blue Oyster Cult?
A little better.
More cowbell.
Brian, we do have a hand raised in the audience from Fred Dunnington.
Before we get Fred, and I still have the board deliberating here, Chris.
Okay.
Heather?
So Kathleen, can you just remind me, in this new format with the panelists, what is our current limit for attendees?
500.
500. Yeah, 500.
Okay. Is there any way to do any kind of RSVP? I'm just wondering, given the ease at which people can log in and attend remotely, you know, is there any possibility that we might have to turn people away and need to consider an alternative meeting? I'm probably spending too much time thinking about the what ifs, but we can certainly talk about that further into January.
Our best attended meetings where we have something controversial on the town meeting warning, and we're in the 300, 350 range.
Okay.
That's in person though, or?
That's in person.
Yeah.
That's in person. Yeah, I do wonder if we'll get higher numbers because people can attend from home, but you know, hopefully not.
I doubt it when they're not going to vote.
Chris may be able to chime in on this, but I think we can supersize it up to some greater number for a month.
Oh yeah, we can have a cast of thousands if you'd like.
Ooh.
Oh, okay.
All right.
I do think we'll probably, I mean, we may want to talk about, I don't know, I'm just throwing this out there, the potential for having people submit questions beforehand if they can. I don't know if that's doable, but if we are that well attended, which I hope we are, because that would be wonderful, I think it can get a little hairy, and I want to be sure everybody has a chance to feel like they were heard. And I think if we can knock out, I suspect we'll have a lot of the same questions. And if we can knock them out first, that might help grease the wheels and keep the conversation moving in this awkward format.
Certainly, Lindsay, that happens all the time with us, that we get emails and try to accommodate them the best we can. Do note that we invited people to do that when we had the college join us in July, and that worked very well, so that we were able to answer a lot of their questions. But we would need to make a deadline like a week in advance so that we can get them all in and sort them and respond.
Okay, Susan.
One more thing, and don't forget about the live streaming on MCTV. Usually takes quite a bit. There's quite a few people who are watching town meeting from home. So a lot of those people you may be anticipating will want to watch and not necessarily participate, that they can watch live streaming on MCTV, and that might take down those numbers a little bit that you're thinking of.
Good point. So Chris, if you can bring Fred in. Even Fred.
Can you hear me? Hi,
Yeah.
can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was just, so if early voting starts February 10th and your warning is to be set at the end of January, the 27th or something, seems like a public informational meeting on the things other than the budget. You're gonna have the budget hearing before that, but I was thinking of the cannabis article where people might want to hear the discussion about that in that window of time between January 27th and February 9th. And I just wonder if that schedule is what you've been thinking about, Kathleen.
Yes.
So I was unable to, due to a local plumbing emergency in my house, on Monday, attend the Public Health and Safety Committee meeting. But I think that committee ought to have a preview of the discussion of the ordinances that might be discussed. So people who are voting on this might know what is possible to regulate locally, and that might inform their vote at town meeting. And that would indicate there needs to be another Public Health and Safety Committee meeting on that topic between now and that window of time I mentioned.
Dan?
We've already committed to a cannabis hearing or public information before the town meeting. I mean, we've already committed to that. We just haven't committed a date yet, right?
Yeah, I think Fred's point is that we're going to have people voting up to 20 days, I guess it is, ahead of the actual town meeting date. And so I think I don't want to get wrapped. We're spending a lot of time on the dynamics of when we're having meetings and stuff. And we have a very adept person who schedules that all for us. And if we can't trust her to figure out the calendar and we need half the town to figure that out, then we got bigger issues. So I'm going to put this in Kathleen's field that she will give us a proposal for when it makes sense to have meetings and what the items that we will have in those meetings is. We have a motion. I don't think we even voted on yet.
No.
I don't know if I've got a second on it yet.
I seconded it.
Yes, we do.
Okay, we got a motion and a second, and I'd like to vote on the motion that we will conduct. I guess it's just going to be called an informational meeting or informational meetings, and that the town will do a fully Australian ballot voting, which includes the budget and all warned articles this year for 2021 only. All in favor of that, signify with thumbs up. All right, we're done this topic.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. FY21 year-to-date budget report, Kathleen.
So briefly, I'm just going to be doing a rerun of last month's report with a couple of updates. On the general fund, library expenses are down about $60,000 due to the impact of COVID, and revenues are also down $7,000 from last year at this time. As far as the recreation department expenses go, they are down by about $23,000 from last year at this time, but revenue is also down by $56,000 compared to last year at this time. The only other thing to recognize on the general fund is that some of our equipment fund transfers, which were made earlier, were made later last year than this year, makes our numbers seem a little bit higher this year for expenses in the police department and highway department. But other than that, tax collections came in very well for our first installment, with 2% not collected as of that time, and that's typical as of the due date. And also, as I reported last month, not a lot to report on the water, sewer, and equipment fund, except for the water fund is way over budget for contracted services for water mains. There's not a lot we can do about that. Make adjustments where we can in the budget, but there's not a lot of fluff in those budgets to make up that type of overage.
Any questions, Lindsay?
Just a quick one. Are the sections where we've seen the breaks, the sections that we've already sort of got on the imminent horizon to focus on? No. Oh, all right.
How are we tracking on local option tax revenue?
A local option tax was right where it was last year for the third quarter, surprisingly. And we saw a slight dip in the second quarter, estimating that we'll be about $65,000 off for this fiscal year. And that's just an estimate with my guesses for what's going to happen in this current quarter and the next quarter.
Overall, you feel okay with the way we're tracking then?
Overall, I'm comfortable with the way we're tracking.
Okay. Any other questions for Kathleen? All right. Chris, could you invite Howard Weidlitz in, please, with us? And Howard's going to be talking about requests for support on an assessment of the HVAC system in the police building.
There we go. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Howard.
So I think I can make this pretty quick. Sorry, the lighting's bad here. But so in a previous meeting, Richard Hopkins on behalf of the Energy Committee had presented the greenhouse gas reduction strategy that the Energy Committee has been working on, and you'll be seeing it again in January. So in keeping with that, regarding the thermal component of that strategy is looking to have heating within municipal buildings to the extent feasible, switching over to heat pumps where it is feasible. So we met with Dan Dupras, he's part of Engineering Services of Vermont, and they're the ones that performed the assessment of the library, the heating at the library, and highly recommended. And we are asking him to do a similar study on the police department. As we know, the heating, the HVAC at the police department and the police building is nearing its end of life. And so what we would like to have happen is do an assessment to understand, what energy efficient systems can be put in place regarding either heat pumps, heat recovery, things like that. And what we are hoping to do is we're recommending using Energy Committee budget to perform that assessment in the amount of $2,800. And we think it's a good use of that money to see what we can do in keeping with the strategy and doing what we can to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions for municipal energy use. So yeah, it's really what we're hoping to do. It's coming out of the Energy Committee budget, which we can certainly cover that cost.
Okay, thank you, Howard. Is there questions of Howard on this? Nick?
Thanks, Howard. I have just more of a comment, and this is as an engineer who has done a lot of analysis, not necessarily of heat systems, it's not my specialty, but of others. And one of the things that's always kind of it's a real problem to me is when I see an implicit bias in a proposal. What I'm seeing here is primarily looking at options to convert to alternative fuels. Leave it there. When you start including heat pumps, which any engineer who's working on these now is going to look at that as one of the options, but it tends to, in my mind, put an implicit bias. I would rather say for this, instead of really a standard for everything we do in the future, is we want to have an understanding of what the alternative options are, because one may not be appropriate, even though we think it is initially. So if we could take out the implicit biases, then I'm all for this. I think it's something we need to do. but we need to be cautious about that.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what you're saying for sure, but I also believe that, you know, a big part of this assessment is determining the feasibility of converting to alternative heating sources. And so, I mean, I guess that bias is built in, but purposefully, you know, I think that's really what we're after here.
What I actually found in my own house is I have done some heat pump conversions. Now the geometry of my house is such that they don't work as well as they could in other buildings. It's just inherent. They work really well for me. I actually run through, I'll call it for like a term that I think gets over abused, but is hybrid. I use the heat pumps during the spring and the fall when there's a shoulder season, and they work incredibly well. When it starts to get into the real cold winter months, and they can't keep up. They don't function well, and again, the geometry of the building, and I end up converting onto my hot water heat gas fired system. And each one has its place and works efficiently. So I think what it comes down to is there's a possibility it might be two different types of systems that work because of the geometry of the building, which was designed under a different assumption. So that's once again why I like to avoid the implicit bias and let the engineers figure out what the best is, and it might be multi. And I know ESV is a quality company that does good work, so I have high regard for them.
Yeah, understood. Yeah.
I will point out that this is also on Dan Warner's presentation that the Infrastructure Committee had taken this up in their discussion at their last committee meeting. So I'm thinking we've heard from Howard and we would move forward and then hear from Dan and make a decision after we've heard from everybody on this particular situation, if everybody's okay with that. Okay, then I would ask Chris to bring Dan in with us.
Okay, you can hear me, but
yes, yeah.
I got to push a button to start my video. Here we go. All right.
You too. Geez, you all look. You've all got that same beard, mustache look going.
Yeah, I've had it since 1977. What can I say?
But I think it's gotten whiter.
It's just the lighting.
Okay.
All right. So as long as we're fresh on it, do you want to go right to that energy proposal?
If you could skip ahead to the energy proposal 13C, and then we can come back after, so that we have Howard here if there's any questions.
Yeah, I really don't have anything to add. I hear what you're saying about bias, but I think they're a top-notch company, and we can certainly have conversation with them to make sure that we look at all the options other than just heat pumps. And I mean, for the public, I mean, we've been saying that this is coming due, knowing that there's going to be time to do this study, and then whatever the cost estimates are, that there'll be some time needed to program it into the budget. But we want to, get going on it, because these things can take a couple 3 years to come to fruition, and then figure out how the finances work. So trying to get a little bit of an early start on it, so you know what we're dealing with.
Heather.
So this was the company that did the evaluation on the library too, correct? And
Correct.
When they did that evaluation, they originally were considering multiple options, right? I mean, they looked at pellet heat, and they looked at fuel oil, and they evaluated everything. I was kind of maybe I was wrong to assume, but I was kind of assuming we were getting a similar service that we got for the library for the police department. Am I wrong?
No, not really. What changed with the library, and the other energy source they looked at was natural gas. And what's changed for the library is that the efficiencies of heat pumps at low temperatures, in 1 year, then that changed the dynamic considerably because their efficiency went up for really, really cold temperatures. So it really booted natural gas out of the picture. We may have already gone past the point where natural gas is even considered because of the efficiencies of heat pumps. The technology is changing pretty quickly.
Okay. So I think I'm ready to move and award a contract to Engineering Services of Vermont for the evaluation and study of the HVAC system at the police department for a total cost of $28,000.
2,800.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry.
I'm
Had
seconding 28.
my comment in the wrong place. 2,800.
Are we buying the equipment now, or is that just to?
Did somebody second that?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
Farhad can have it.
Okay.
So generous today.
Any comments on the question? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to award the contract, signify with thumbs up. Okay.
I'll further move to approve the Energy Committee's request to allocate $2,800 from its project budget to fund the HVAC system evaluation.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I believe we talked about that. Yes, you have that in your budget still, Howard?
We do, yep.
Okay.
We can certainly cover that.
All in favor, signify with a thumbs up. Okay. All right, Howard. So I guess I'll bid you adieu and thank you for bringing that to us. And will you guys be coordinating with, or are you taking care of the lead on that, Dan, to coordinate with the SV?
Howard and I can talk about it.
Yeah.
Either one of us, but.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk to Dan. We'll figure that out. Not a problem.
All right, very good. So Dan, then let's go back to 13A.
Sure. This is a proposal from Greenmount Engineering for replacement of the sidewalk and curbing between Mill Street and the Battelle Bridge up to Merchants Row. There's also a section just uphill towards Main Street from the post office and then across from the post office in the green. There's some sections of sidewalk, and then also curbing will be split between some granite curbing and concrete curbing. Concrete curbing is really going to only be across the Battelle Bridge on the downstream side because we can't have a joint between the granite and the sidewalk, so we don't have an infiltration getting into the roof, into the bridge deck. So this proposal is to do all that walk. I mean, we've talked about it a few times. Our infrastructure committee's also talked about it a few times. I don't know if Kathleen, if you have the maps, if it's worth doing, but
Yeah.
not really critical. But if you want, I can go there. But our goal is to get this out to bid on mid-January and get bids back in a few weeks after that. So just briefly, there's a bit of detail here. The red lines you see is granite curbing. The blue line you see is concrete curbing, and the yellow is all the sidewalk. So basically everything from Mill Street up to Merchants Row would be replaced. The upstream side of the Battelle Bridge, you see where the little arrow stops about where Main Street is. That sidewalk and curbing we did a few years ago, it's still in good condition, so we're not going to bother removing that. So that's this kind of the southern section. The other map is up by the post office in the green. And that is just granite curbing, no sidewalk work is necessary. So start from the post office driveway and then going up the hill towards Seymour Street and wrapping around the corner, including the crosswalk, curb at the crosswalk. And then on the green side, we're going to start where the rail project left off with granite curbing and go up to Emma Willard. So this contract is to take care of that. I just do want to mention, back on Main Street near between like Merchants Road and Wild Mountain Time, we're going to change the grade on that sidewalk. It really has more of a slope than it needs to, and it'll give us more of a curb edge, from the driving edge of the driving area to the top of the sidewalk. It tends to get splashed a lot because the curb is, pretty short right there. So we're going to fix that problem. And then Wild Mountain Time, the owner put a new hatch in the sidewalk a few months ago, and so we're gonna tie into that and make that nice and pretty. So anyway, the proposal from Green Mountain Engineering is for $16,000 for the design and bid phase. And like I said, we're gonna get this out to bid in mid-January. So we have proposal ready to go, so we can figure out what the rest of our budget for our other sidewalk projects around town. So we want to get this one nailed down first.
Question for Dan? Nick?
And I'm trying to recall, maybe, the date is always a variable, but when is Kubricki looking to put the final coat on that area?
Well, what's going to happen is, the state is going to come in and mill from just south of the college, coming up 125,
right,
by the golf course. They're going to mill that and go all the way up to where the Kubricki seam is, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the eastern end of that, up to Main Street, is going to get milled along with all of Route 7 from Town Line up the hill way up past the Swift House,
right,
all the way down to Creek Road. So all that's going to get milled at some point in the spring. And then we're ahead of that or close to it, we would have this curbing sidewalk done. And then they'll come back and pave the whole thing. And that's going to be later in the summer, August, late July, maybe August.
Okay. So we've got to move on it now. It makes sense, and I'm glad you're ahead of the curve on this one,
we want
because
to get.
those dates come quick. So okay, good, makes sense. Thanks.
Yeah.
I think Farhad was next.
Yeah, just a quick question. You had two different curbings. Is there a reason for that instead of having a uniform all granite or all concrete?
Yeah, Kathleen, can you put that one up, Main Street? So the granite curbing starts at Mill Street. There's already some there now. And we're going to start where we end up just east of Mill Street. What you have to remember is, and Kathleen, if you can help point this out, where the red granite curbing stops coming north from Mill Street, you'll see changes to blue. That's the barrel section. There's still a barrel section of the bridge in front of that brick building where the upfitters is. And then that has to be granite. So that's why you see a blue section of, that has to be concrete. That's why you see a section of concrete between the two red sections of granite, because we can't have granite curbing running across the bridge, because salt water from snow melt will get into that joint and get down into the bridge deck. So it has to be sealed up with a concrete sidewalk and concrete sidewalk and concrete curbing at the same time. It makes it more waterproof.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
And Laura?
Hi, Dan. Are you
Hi.
familiar with the conversation about the Actor bus stop location changing from potentially, it's discussed changing from the post office to the National Bank of Middlebury area? And are you familiar with that discussion?
Yes, I read about it this morning.
Okay. does that impact this work at all? You know, like the conversation has come up about exactly how to navigate that because of concerns about that corner by Printer's Alley.
This is all outside of that work.
Okay. That was my question.
Yep.
Lindsay?
Yeah, just two quick things. Am I right in reading this that the other side of the bridge, we're not touching the curb or the sidewalk at this
Correct.
time? Okay.
Correct.
Is it because it's in excellent shape, or it seems like it would make sense to do them both at the same time just for aesthetic reasons? So, but I also
Right, no,
realize that
we-
aesthetic reasons are money. So,
Yeah, we did those. I'm not sure on the date. It might have been 2010 or 11. I think that section was replaced. So it wasn't anticipating to tear it out. It's still in
they're in
good
good
shape.
shape then. Okay. And then my other quick thing is just, and if you mentioned this and I missed it, I'm so sorry, but in infrastructure, you had talked about how we were unsure how something was attached, the sidewalk was attached somewhere just because of the age of the bridge. So I think it would be good to say that publicly, because you were saying there's
sure.
a possibility it'll open up and there might be a surprise.
Yeah, it's the barrel section, the sidewalk that's over the barrel section that, right where that point of granite stops and concrete stops. If you're out for a stroll, take a look down down parallel to the bridge deck or the parapet walls, looking south. There's a gap between the bridge face and the buildings, and that sidewalk is cantilevered somehow and attached or whatever to that brick building, and that's an unknown how that works. So there is some structural engineering part of this total engineering package to sort that out. Back in I'm not sure, it was 2002, 2003, when the first decking project underneath there was put up. Yeah, it's been a while, Kathleen. Yeah, it's pretty puzzling. Like, holy cow, look at that sidewalk. What's holding that up? So we had a good look at it then. But anyway, part of the project is structural engineering.
Thank you.
Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to award a contract to Green Mountain Engineering for the final design and bid phase engineering services for the Main Street curb and sidewalk replacement project at a total cost of $16,000.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I think we've exhausted the questions. None. All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay.
All right, the next item is roofing replacement on the pole building down at Public Works. Bill Kernan went out and got, several proposals from some area roofers. The low bid is from Kevin's Roofing and Carpentry. They are local, out of Brandon. Their proposal was $16,180. And it's to strip off all the corrugated metal roofing and put in new purlins. Purlins, if you don't know, are the horizontal members that go between the roof rafters. And that's what the roofing gets screwed down to. That roof is probably, well, it's as old as the building. And so it's got to be, I'm not sure if it's late 80s, roughly. So it's served its purpose, and it's worn out. So it's time to replace it. Funding is going to come from the capital set aside that we had for our replacement of the roofing material on the salt building. So we'll tap that money and we'll just have to replace it in the next couple of capital improvement fiscal years. So requesting the board to approve the proposal from Kevin's Roofing and Carpentry for $16,180.
Lindsay?
Yeah, I was just going to mention, I did ask in infrastructure, Bill Kernan, he seems to feel that salt roof is in great shape and we shouldn't have trouble getting through if we push that project off a year.
Yes.
Farhad?
Yeah, Dan, I've seen somewhere you mentioned that you had worked with both Rob Home Improvement and Kevin before, correct?
Bill is familiar with them. I the only thing I can tell you about Kevin is that I had Kevin give me a price on my house years ago. So I have no personal experience with him.
Yeah, my only question is, I'm looking at Kevin's proposal. It's not very clear the way Rob and the other company has written their proposal. He doesn't mention that he's going to remove all the debris, and is it going to be the same kind of work he's going to do like they have offered?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't look like that if I'm reading his proposal.
So we should clarify in the any contract documents for HUD, you're saying that there's debris removal included and any other aspects.
Correct.
Yeah. If there's not, then we'll just do a do-over. Simple as that.
All right.
Any other questions? Pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion. Go ahead, Farhad.
Oops, sorry. I'll make a motion to award a contract for replacing the metal roof of the DPW pole building to Kevin's Roofing and Carpentry for a total cost of $16,180.
Second.
Seconded. Any last questions? None, all in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay. We've done 13C, on to D, Dan.
Sure. This is some change order items for the police department building. Let me get the thing out here. So the total change order is $16,403.96. But I want to point out one thing. One of the items that's on there, and it's actually the second one that says PCO 18020 masonry infill and cleaning. You've already approved that back in November at a previous meeting. I was anticipated that the contractor would have sent a purchase or a change order for that one, and then Kathleen would have signed it because you already approved it, but they didn't, and some of that's a function of staff availability on their end with this COVID and people working from home. So they included in this other one. So the skinny on it is out of the 16,400, you've already approved 9,900 and change. But anyway, this list is some of the items that we need to get final approval on. And of course, the way building projects go, some of these are already done. But I do want to point out a couple other things. The excavation and backfill test holes, this is the first one. And then further down, it's number 18033 for $495. That one's going to go to the decommissioning, and so is cap the basement louver well and the pipe, which is number 18035, $950. So those I'm going to, they're going to be part of the VMS's contract, but I'm going to charge those off to the decommissioning because they probably should have been taken care of at that point. So it's a change order for $16,403. But since the last time we talked about a total, it really amounts to about a $4,200 addition from last time. So long story short, we're still $60,000 plus in the fund to complete the project. So I wanted to get that number out there because I'm sure it's a curiosity. So I'm requesting the board to approve change order 006, and then that some of these items will be coded to the decommissioning part of the project.
Questions? Nick?
So Dan, run me by. So we've already approved the 9931.
Right.
So really,
right.
so the difference is really, this is a change order at this point for 6472.96, but then you mentioned something else. Where'd that money come, what was the other amount?
There's three items that are they're still gonna be part of this change order, but they won't be charged to this building project, and be charged to the decommissioning fund. And those items are 18011.
18011.
Yep, right at the top.
Yeah.
And then 18033, which is $495. And then 18035, which is $950. So even though they're going to be part of VMS's contract, they'll be part of those will be charged off to the decommissioning. It'll just be internal accounting of where the money gets charged.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I'm just thinking, in the world I work in, this looks a little, I know what we're doing and it's going to be fine, but it just, this is the type of stuff that I see get kicked back a whole lot. And, but yeah, just because it's not following linear logic of how it's been approved. But
right.
Okay. This strikes me as a little sloppy, but on VMS's part, but otherwise, yeah, I see what's happening. Okay. I won't argue against it.
Yeah, so this change order basically negates the discussion we had on November 2 of approving that one. They just did not submit that as its own change order.
So do we have to pull that one out? Sort of like invalidate that? Does that make it clear?
Well, you can. Well, you could probably do a motion that you would rescind PCO, which was a possible change order, PCO 18020.
Yeah, I think that would make that would actually make me feel good to do it that way. So I'd like to. Yeah, so I think to start off, I'd like to make a motion to rescind PCO 1800 for, that was what, $9,931.
Yeah, 18020. Yeah.
Yes. 020, correct.
Second.
Okay, and we're tracking right there, Dan?
Yes.
That's the right one to delete?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor of deleting 18020, I believe it is?
Yep.
Yes.
Signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Now, Nick, you want to continue forward here?
Okay, I'm fine with this now. So now it's just making the new motion, correct?
Correct.
And let me get to that point here while I bouncing around here and trying to. Let's see here. Okay, so I move to approve change order 06 to the contract with VMS Construction for the Middlebury Police Department Adaptive Reuse Project for a total of $16,403.96.
Second.
Okay. All in favor of that motion, signify with a thumbs up. Okay, Dan. 13 Echo.
This item is about an amendment to the tree policy and the ash borer management plan. Judy Weiger Gross, who is also an infrastructure committee member, gave a presentation at the infrastructure committee about her changes to the policy, and it's very slight. I think it was, I can get it here. It was page 4. I don't know if you've got that, or if you've taken a look at it, but the only change was on page 4 of the document where the sentence was changed. It says, for each public tree removed, 2 replacement 2 new replacement trees will be planted. So what they're trying to accomplish is when you take one down, plant 2. They don't necessarily have to be in the same place, but that's a goal they want to achieve. So that's the only difference in the tree policy from the previous year.
Lindsay.
Yeah, one bit of conversation we had at infrastructure that I'd like to point out is it does say will replace, not should. So that does have the town on the, on the hook for the cost. I don't know what that would do to the, I know we do have a tree budget. Or if that's anything worth setting aside year to year, my guess is, we can cover it, but I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, what it comes down to, if it comes down to is we have, I think we set aside $5,700 a year for tree replacement. And once you spend that, then that's all you get to spend. So plan
So
wisely.
if we had to pull down 2 additional trees or that puts us on the hook, right?
Well, I think it does managerially, so the next year you're gonna say, okay, we still got to put 2 trees back over there,
Okay.
You just have to.
You feel comfortable with it. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to talk about, increasing the budget or being liability budget-wise just because somebody pulls a tree out and you got to plant 2. You're just going to say, well, we'll do it next year, when the funds are there.
Okay. The other thing I was just going to point out, as we talk about energy, like, planting 2 trees for 1 is a great way of reducing our carbon emissions. Part of the reason why Vermont is in such great shape is because we have so many trees. So in that way, I think it's a really beneficial thing.
Okay, we have some motions that we need to. Go ahead.
Judy Weicker Groves has her hands raised.
Okay.
All I want to say is if you have further questions or need further clarification, I'm hanging out here in the audience to answer them. Otherwise, I will keep quiet.
Any questions of Judy on this? Laura?
Not a question, but Judy has taught me that trees provide a significant shading and cooling benefit. So not only is it reducing carbon footprint, but it does have that significant benefit when we're seeing rise in temperature in our summers. So I just wanted to note that.
Okay, so pleasure of the board.
I'll make a motion to adopt the Town of Middlebury tree policy as amended.
Second.
All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay.
I'll also move to approve the Town of Middlebury Emerald Ash Borer Management Plan as amended.
Second.
All in favor signify with a thumbs up.
I'll move to sign the Select Board proclamation declaring the first Friday in May each year as Arbor Day.
Second.
All in favor, thumbs up.
And I'll also move to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to sign the 2020 Tree City USA application for certification.
Second.
All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay. All right, is Bill coming back or are you handling this, Dan?
I am not handling this one.
Actually,
Bill's coming.
Dustin Hunt is coming.
Oh,
Yes.
yes, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
Dustin and I have been strategizing here in the background, given the latency problem we had before. So he's going to do this audio only.
Okay.
All right, can you hear me?
We've got you.
All right, I'll keep this short and sweet. I am asking for approval of a purchase order in the amount of $3,850 to replace some gym equipment that has reached the end of its useful life. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Questions of Dustin?
Well, just curious, what, because it's a relatively new building, so is that just typical?
Yep. So two of the things that are replacing are safety straps on the basketball hoops that right now it's not operational anymore until those straps are replaced, because that prevents the hoop from falling if something were to malfunction. And then the other is that we've had some wear and tear on the bar in our divider that we dropped down to separate the gym. So that's the other piece that would be getting replaced. And of course, all of those are just recently out of warranty.
Were you surprised?
Not really, no. The safety straps, they said they have about a 5-year lifespan, so that's right in that same time frame. And then the only surprise was the bar in the middle, and the manufacturer is not really sure why that happened.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions of Dustin? Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to award a contract to, I'm going to try to say this, Lajuanis or something, Lavanis Interiors for the repair of center partition at the rec center gym at a total cost of $3,850 under the sole source exceptions provision of the purchasing policy.
Second.
Seconded. Any last comments or questions? All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Thank you, Dustin.
Thank you, guys. Happy holidays.
Same to you.
You as well, Dustin.
Kathleen, dog park lease.
So in another case of how time flies, 5 years has gone by on the dog park lease and it's up for renewal. The college is amenable to renewing it as is, and I'm asking the board to give me the authority to execute a 5-year extension before January 1st, 2021, with the same terms as conditions as outlined in the current lease agreement.
Any questions of Kathleen? Can't believe it's been 5 years already.
I'll move to authorize Town Manager Kathleen Ramsey to take all necessary steps to execute a renewal of the town's ground lease with Middlebury College for the dog park off Collins Road for an additional 5-year term commencing January 1st, 2021, with all other existing lease terms and conditions.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions? All in favor signify with a thumbs up. All right. Next is Lister's grand list errors in emissions report in accordance with VSA 32, section 4261. When real or personal estate is omitted from the grand list by mistake or an obvious error is found, the listers, with the approval of the select board, may supply such omissions or correct such errors to the grand list. Our acting assessor, Allison Joseph, has provided us this list of errors and omissions, and the board's approval is now requested in order to correct the grand list as noted. Any questions on it? Okay, hearing none. Pleasure of the board.
I move to approve the 2020 grand list errors and omissions report as presented.
Second, anyone?
Second.
We'll leave her hanging for a little bit and then we'll come in.
I'm gonna, we're not even together. I'd bring a box of Joe next time to keep us all moving a little faster. All in favor, signify with thumbs up. Okay. Is Karen coming in, or are we just gonna cover this, Kathleen?
I don't see Karen coming in on this briefly. Neighbors Together continuing their good work promoting the downtown. The latest event just finishing up December 14th, the holiday edition of the Pig Out. And BMP is asking for an approval of a purchase order for the promised prize money for $3,300.
Any questions? Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to approve a purchase order in the amount of $3,300 to be used by Neighbors Together to purchase Middlebury money, which will be awarded as prizes in a drawing as part of the Great Middlebury Pig Out Holiday Edition.
Second.
Just a clarification, Kathleen, this is from our funds that they already have sitting in a pot.
Yes.
You have to get our approval. All in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Kathleen?
Okay, back in November, we discussed the renewal of the Addison County Supervisory District lease for the rec park. Arriving late this afternoon, Benj Putnam did his usual good work in a short and sweet 25-year extension, working with the school council, Evan Punderson, on that. As Nick suggested, we addressed the Land Water Conservation Commission funding, tightened that up a little bit. And then Dustin had some recommendations about the playground, just naming it a playground rather than the kid space or whatever the current incarnation of the playground is, because it changes from time to time and certainly will change over the next 25 years.
Any questions of Kathleen on this? Nick?
Thanks for taking care of that, Kathleen. I appreciate that. I admit I've got a slight bit of reluctance to vote positively, yes, not because I don't think it's proper, but it did come in late. And
Yep.
And the problem is I literally went from flat out series of meetings to this meeting. So I haven't even read it.
Okay.
Now I'm going to trust that, Ben's done good work, and I appreciate the work that you've done, but I will be voting for it, but very reluctantly because of just not having time to review. And I would have personally rather put this off to the next meeting, but.
Nick, we did and talk with Brian briefly about the possibility of getting together to approve warrants on December 29th. For a very, very, very brief meeting. So if you'd like to defer this to then, you could do that as well.
I would actually like to do that. I think that would be fair. And I know, others have flat out schedules. I mean, I think what Fahad does for his daily work day, and I don't know how he fits it all in there. So I would personally feel better if to vote on something that's a 25-year duration, which, I don't want to be handing future board members something that just makes me uncomfortable. So I would rather defer this one.
And in that regard, if you would all take a look at that soon, if you have any questions, concerns, let me know so we can have a Loctite document on December 29th.
That's fair.
And what day is December 29th? I'm sorry.
It's a Tuesday.
It's a Tuesday again? Yeah. I should be okay with that.
So we're gonna, if we had to meet on the 29th anyways for something?
We were going to do just the warrants, the bills payable, and any year-end bills that had to get out.
That's right. That's why we sent that out to everybody. Okay. So we should be able to knock out what we have to do fairly quickly. If you have plans for that evening, if you could make them for after 7:30. So then we'll move on to the check warrants here. And that's you.
I guess it's my part here. I'm gonna dig through this debris pile again and find it. Okay, by the authority of this select board granted on April 28, 2020, I have reviewed and approved total expenditures of $279,166.71. And that consists of $245,279.10 for accounts payable and $33,887.61 for payroll for the period December 9, 2020 through December 15, 2020. And I move the board's approval of payments of these expenditures, and please don't leave me hanging.
Second.
Seconded, all in favor signify with a thumbs up. Okay. Kathleen, town manager's report.
Briefly, the agenda item here is discuss the board's approach on advancing race, equity, and inclusion, pending a proposal from Lisa Ryan, the program director of the Rutland County Community Justice Center, and Tabitha Moore, director of the Rutland area chapter of the NAACP. As noted in my report, I reached out to Lisa Ryan last week about her anticipated timeline for presenting a proposal to the select board, and have not heard from her, a reply from her. Also note that I believe it was in the Rutland Herald, it was announced that Tabitha Moore, the director of the NAACP in Rutland, has resigned from that position. So that may have been a contributing factor to the delay in getting the proposal together.
I was chatting with Dan a little bit, and go ahead, Dan.
Sure. Yeah, Brian and I talked a little bit today, and so did Kathleen. I'm slightly frustrated with our progress on this, and I don't think there's any blame to be put on us. But every time we get to this topic in our board meetings, it's always late, and we don't have time, and the next couple of months are going to be even busier, as we just found adding additional board meetings. What I would kind of like, not to take this off the select board's plate, but I would like to recommend that we do what several other communities and many businesses have, and that's make a committee that would be, I don't know what we call it, but a race equity and inclusion committee, or some type of committee like that, with board members, possibly staff members and members of the community that could help us and advise us as a select board on, first of all, learning about what this is, and then learning what's going on in the community, and then trying to make some type of evaluation or some type of look at our town and the way we administer our town to make changes or to make this a better place for all of us to live. So I'm not saying, and I talked to Brian about this also, not make this committee right now, but we've got a couple months before March comes when we start looking at committees. And I think this would be a great way to at least have a group of people with a couple of us or some of us on that committee to push this forward and start making some progress on it, because we're just not doing anything right now.
Lindsay.
Yeah, no, I've felt similarly to Dan, a little bit frustrated with the progress we're making, although I'm also very aware how much is on everybody's plates at this particular moment. And I've been really impressed with the efforts that we have made. I would support Dan's idea of a committee, as long as we all agree that it's still work that we need to be doing. but I think a committee would make a lot of sense. And we've seen from some of our other committees how quickly they can get some things on the table. My other suggestion, and I know we were, working to honor some suggestions from people in the community about who we should work with. And it's, this kind of work is always hard in a community like ours because, we have so few people of color. So we don't necessarily have somebody right in Middlebury who's a person of color who does this work. But Renee Wells is local. She's wonderful. I think more than one of us have sat in on some of the workshops she's done. And she might be somebody who could put something together, a race, equity, and inclusion 101 workshop pretty quickly, if she's open to it. But I think it would be worth, I think we did our due diligence in, trying to do it the perfect way. And so it might be time to reach out to Renee and see if she would be willing to help us out.
I think I agree with that. I know something about her too.
Me too.
Yep.
Okay, well then why don't we try reaching out to, do you know Renee, Kathleen, or have
Yeah, I've
contact?
been to several of her workshops, so I'd be happy to reach out.
Okay. All right, and what's the board think as far as adding a racial equity and inclusion committee to our list of committees as we start? Dan and I have talked, and it feels to me like the start of our new board season and new committee season is a good time to kick that off, because we'll be going through it after the elections and verifying board members. And so that way it becomes, it kicks off with all the other boards.
Well, I'm certainly in favor of it.
Laura?
So what happened to Ideal Middlebury? Is that a committee that functions as a race equity committee? Lindsay, do you know?
They're a community organization, but they're not associated with the town.
Right.
In
That's the way the energy committee started, and then it became, a town committee. And so I just wonder if members of Ideal are interested in.
I certainly hope they would be. I certainly hope they would be interested in being involved.
Yeah, if we establish a committee, we'll ask for volunteers for sure.
Yeah.
I do think that the structure of the committee will be a little bit different if we're going to bring it in underneath the select board, and that we want some board participation.
I think too. Oh, sorry, Laura.
No, that was it.
Okay. I will have the opportunity to hash out the details. I mean, the only thing I would say about Ideal is that so far what I've seen from them, they're focused on one particular aspect of this conversation, that being, how racism applies, in the sphere of public safety and the police. So I just want to be sure we get people who, and I'm sure we would from that committee. Like I know some of those individuals, and they're wonderful people who are really committed to this work. So I just, I think if we're going to make a committee, we need to maybe be thoughtful in our language and what we're asking of them.
Okay. So in the interest of, I think we're in agreement here. And so in the interest of that, I would ask Kathleen, if you got a follow-up on the digester, did you want to?
Just briefly, in response to Lindsay's question about the status of the digester project, I reached out to Eric Fitch of Purpose Energy, who provided an update on the various project permits completed and those still outstanding. And that's provided in your packet.
Okay. Any questions of Kathleen? All right. I will say it's late enough, we're not going to do the executive session. So we finished with board member concerns. Nick?
I said it before, I'll say it again, this COVID's trying to take all the joy out of the holiday season, and it certainly has made its mark this year. In fact, I sit there and think that this would be the board meeting where we all, at the end of the meeting, we share warm handshakes and hugs, and I want to put that part on hold so that next time we're together, we do that. But don't let this damn disease take away the joy. You know, while we can't do all the activities we want to, you know, do whatever you can to keep communication with your family, your friends, your loved ones. Let them know that they're all still important. We're all thinking about them. And you know, celebrate the season the best you can, and do it safely so that next year we all can really celebrate in place. And as I like to thank, we really have a phenomenal town staff, and they work hard for us all year. Many of them don't even get recognized. And so I want to thank them all for what they do, and wish them well this holiday season, and whatever one's faith is, celebrate with joy, and be well all, and look forward to a new and prosperous new year.
Thanks, Nick. Lindsay?
Yeah, just a couple of quick things. Anne mentioned earlier, but I just wanted to highlight it again, that people will need to request a ballot if they want to vote by mail or drop it off at the box, or otherwise, you know, vote early. They're not going to mail them all out this time. So I just wanted, she said it, but she said it so briefly, I wanted to be sure everybody knew. If you would like a ballot mailed to your house, you do need to request it from Anne. Yeah, I as Nick was just talking about the holiday season, I'm not sure if toy drives are happening this year. They normally do. But, you know, again, this is a year where if you have a little bit of something extra to share, there are a lot of families out there who are struggling. I mean, I know as a mom, I start planning Christmas around Halloween. And I think a lot of parents are in that boat, and, you know, feeling like you don't have anything to offer your kids is such an awful feeling. So if anybody has anything, you know, there are a number of organizations in town that normally do that. I haven't looked to see that they do it this year. And finally, quickly, I'd like to make a motion to replace Kathleen's light switch.
Second.
Well, Kathleen, have you gotten the quote on that yet?
I don't know. I still like the fact that when she goes in there and you see that big flash, it's like the rock star coming on the stage. I mean, I think it's cool, and I might go vote against that one.
That's the highlight of our meetings, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's you can't see it, Kathleen, but it's really entertaining. So I like it.
You think she sneaks out and nobody sees her is what she does. So,
but when she comes back, it makes a statement.
It keeps her awake.
I'm going to try that.
Farhad?
Yeah, just a couple things. First of all, Laura, welcome back. Good to see you, and hopefully we'll work together for a little bit again. The second thing is just to echo Nick's comments about happy holidays. I know it's going to be different this year. It's going to be difficult. I hope we come out as a better community on the other side of the new year. I do have a question for Kathleen. Last year or the year before, we hired an extra person in Jackie's office who was going to help with writing grants and stuff. And that person, I understand, has left. Is that correct?
That person left, yes.
So are we planning to replace that position, or what is?
Yes, we are going to be looking to fill a position very soon. It's kind of been on hold with the whole COVID thing, bringing someone on, and some staff still working remotely, but we are going to be moving forward. with that.
Because I think it's an important position to have in the town with, especially when you're Jen at the planning and zoning and Karen at the BMP, they look for grants, they can get a great amount of help from a position like that, correct?
So this position was for grants administration, not for grants writing.
Grant writing, okay.
We were going to charge a fee as a percentage of all the grants that we have to oversee, pass through.
All right.
Heather?
Just happy holidays, everyone. Enjoy your time with your immediate family. And as always, kudos to Kathleen and the rest of the department heads for putting together another great budget. I guess every year, although it's not surprising, the level of professionalism is it's just real admirable, and I just really appreciate the hard work that goes into that. So thank you to all of them.
Thanks, Heather. Laura?
That's what I was going to say. and that I always look at it relative to what is happening with our school budgets, because I know it's a burden on our taxpayers to hold all of this, even though we're all working really hard, to be as tight as possible. But even with that, people are just really struggling, and I'm going to be very curious to see how they do vote on our budgets this year, especially because it is remote. And so I'm just thinking about that, and I do hope we get more attendance at our upcoming meetings in January for people to participate in the budget and understand it. And I'm grateful for the Addie for doing its job to help communicate the budget as well. So I'm really happy to be back with you, and I really respect your work.
Thanks, Laura. Dan?
Wow, I get to wrap it up, huh? Well, I agree with everything that was said there. So that's fabulous, everybody. But I just have one more reminder for this holiday period, and I want I've had an opportunity, at least Michelle and I had an opportunity to look at some of my my former restaurateurs in the eye in the last couple of days, and you don't see really good. You don't see a whole lot of hope in their eyes, and they're struggling and they're laying off people, which means people are at Christmas, just before Christmas, are losing their jobs in several of our businesses in town. And I'm getting tired of watching Michelle stand in front of the TV crying because of the food insecurities that we have around here and we have all over. This is probably the worst time and our time known about with the amount of food insecurity. So if you've got extra money, extra time, or anything, some of our restaurants are going to be contributing, I think, to some things like that. And Hope can certainly use our help, and need to make it we need to feed the people too. So I hope you all have a great holiday, and I don't mean to be a downer on it, but there's a lot going on here that we who can afford to need to help with. So.
Thanks, Dan. I guess I can't wrap it up, but I would say that we all forgot one thing, and that's Heather's caramels. So I hope you enjoy them yourself.
I keep hearing about these things.
Oh, they're good.
So
oh, well, thanks.
I'll have to give you guys all a rain check. I have actually not made any this year so far. And
I like mine fresh.
Yeah. So
I can give you my mailing address.
Yeah.
Is it because of Dan joining the board? We don't get it. Or...
I'd often deliver them.
So let's hope we can get together sometime in person here in 2021, and maybe I can have a batch for everybody then. We'll celebrate Christmas in July, maybe. Here's hoping.
My birthday is July 25th.
Oh, There you
Oh, wait,
go.
I have to
So
put that
it's
down. Just a minute. I'm marking that
the
down.
right day.
Well, thank everyone for all the work that you do. It's been a very busy year. And I can't let you off the hook on the year because we do need to get together again on the 29th we'll keep it to like it should not be more than a half an hour, if that. But we have a couple business items we just need to get together and vote on. And I hope you all enjoy your families.
What time are we planning on that day? Do you know?
7 o'clock.
7. Okay.
And I haven't actually looked. Was Victor up for check warrants between now and March? Does anyone know?
Laura, you remember how to do that?
We have Heather, Victor was in February.
Okay. So Laura.
It's your lucky day, Laura.
If you need someone to fill in, just let me know. I can pick those up if needed. Let me know.
Yeah, I'm willing to do it also.
Is that what you do? You go to the office and you pick them up, take them home, and then bring them back?
No, you stay.
You stay in the office.
Just stay at the office.
Yeah,
We have
Ann's gotta take your temperature and you gotta sign your life away, but then you can go sit in the little conference room.
And don't fall asleep in the conference room by yourself because they will not come and wake you up.
And
You
the
know
light,
that from experience?
and the light does go
Well, I
out.
was in
too.
there about 3 hours one day when it was a $4 million check warrant day or something.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Those are
geez.
always long.
Oh, gosh.
Well, I'd love to sit and chatter, but I have a 20-minute drive home and I'm hungry. I haven't had dinner yet. So
Oh, man.
I would
Have a good night, guys.
motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Second, all in favor. Dan, all in favor.
We didn't drag on that one.
Everyone.
Happy
Good night,
holidays.
all.
Good night.
Everybody.
Happy
Bye-bye.
holidays.
See you in July.